Hey, what's up, guys? It's your commissioner here speaking. Last video of the year. I've written a couple of notes for you guys, some numbers that I wanted to break down. Basically, just gonna talk about some of the stuff I noticed this year overall, and then show some of the average of some of the playoff teams, like some of the player averages, as well as the Final Four matchups. So, one thing that I thought was interesting this year is, and I've mentioned this to a couple people in the league, was that there's not a lot of upsets this year, and you can tell by the records of last year and comparing it to this year's. Last year we had two 8-6 teams make the playoffs, and then we had Alejandro at 8-6 miss it due to points four. And this year we will have zero 8-6 teams and potentially a 9-win team miss the playoffs. So that's kind of crazy. Yeah, last year we had Josh and I was 8-6, Jacob was 9-5, and Max was 11-3. And then this year, Noah and I will be, depending on who wins in our matchup, will be 11-3. We have three 9-win teams already. So yeah, a lot more worse teams this year. I think Alejandro, if he doesn't beat Jacob this year, I really don't think anybody's had a 1-win season. And I know I think Jack the first year he quit after um David Johnson got hurt. I think he had it, but he had two wins. I think other years maybe Hunter had a 2-win season, but I can't remember one. So yeah, I'm hoping for some upsets, hoping for something a little more interesting like this final week. If Alejandro had started Xavier Leggett instead of Ricky Pearsall, um, Noah would have lost, and that would have been a lot much more interesting. But yeah, kind of want to get into the numbers of some of these guys' teams. These are all the playoff. The teams are still alive, and um, I decided to count the most like noteworthy players. And the noteworthy players, my guideline was 14.5 points or more. So Noah has four, Jacob has five, Max has six, as do I, and Hunter and Tony, the non-playoff teams have the ones that are outside of the playoffs right now, they have three. Now there's a couple examples. No, there's a couple players that are on the cusp, and I'm gonna just start rattling them off for you, and um, maybe you guys will find some of this stuff interesting. Looking at Noah's team, if you look at his team, he's got Jefferson with 16.9 points per game and Puka with 15.8. Now, Puka, he had that game where he punched the guy. He had that game where he left early. I think that was the beginning of the season. So his numbers are a little bit lower than they should be. And then he's got Cook at 17.1. After that, though, he's got DeAndre Swift at 13.9 and Brian Thomas at 13.8 and Evan Ingram, his tight end, at 10.3. And as we go across the rest of the teams, you'll see that that's actually kind of an alarming numbers for the right now tied for the best record. And now we got Trevor Lawrence on IR. So I don't know how Brian Thompson and Evan Ingram are going to fare for the end of towards the end of the year. But what's kept his team so amazing, or just a difference maker, is Lamar as averaging 27 points per game. For context, Jaden Daniels is the number three quarterback. He's averaging 21.3. I have Kyler averaging 18.2 and Bo Nix 18.8. The next best is Jalen Hurts for Tony's averaging 23.7. Oh no, excuse me, Jacob with Burrow with 24.1. And then Hunter is at 18.5. Now, Hunter is the biggest outlier of everyone is he stands out from everyone else's teams because he's the only person without a difference maker at quarterback and tight end. Mark Andrews is a tight end six. He has with 10.6, and Jacob has Otten with 10.5. Like I said, Ingram, Noah 10.3. Uh, Tony has Jonnu Smith with 12.2, and if you take his points from the last month, I think he might be tight end one or two. And then me and Max have 16 point per game tight ends. Kittle 16.3 and Bauer 16.5 respectively. So we have a 6 point advantage over pretty much the entire league, except for Tony. But still, 4 points is massive if you go throughout the week. So um, Jacob and Noah's teams are pretty similar in the fact that they have 10 points per game tight ends, but then their quarterbacks are at the top. But to me, I think that's a little scary right now. I think I was talking to Max and like about 2 weeks ago, and I said that I really don't want to face Noah's team with Puka and Jefferson and Lamar. But honestly, what the numbers are showing is that Lamar puts up 24 in one of those 2-week playoffs, he's already playing, he's got to play catch up by the averages because going to Jacobs' team, for example, he's got Collins averaging 19.5, Chase is at 22.7, Jacobs is at 17. Max has Gibbs with 18.1, Kittle at 16.3, and then his next best, I think he's got London at 15.4. And then I have 5 players who are averaging 15 points or more that aren't a QB, and then I have no, 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 I have 6 of them, and then 5 of them are averaging more than 16.5 or 16. And that's about 2 or 3 more than everybody else. So I have the best skill position averages. I have the best tight end. It's really just a quarterback that's holding me back. My running back core is averaging the most points. So I did not look through all the matchups because this video would be way too long. But when I'm looking here, the teams that are sticking out to me, it's my team and it's Max's team because Bucky Irving's averaging 14.6, but if you take it from the last month, he's averaging way more than that. Mike Evans is left a game or two, I think, with injuries. Um, and then Tony's team sticks out to me because he has Jerry Jeudy, who's averaging 13.7 points, but he's been the wide receiver too since Jameis Winston took over in week 8. So, and he has Cortland Sutton, who's averaging 14 points per game. But again, he had a slow start. Achan's averaging 17.7. He had some weeks without Tua. He has Tyreek Hill, who's averaging like 12 point something points. Again, he had like a month plus without Tua. So Tony's team with only 3 quote unquote significant players is actually probably a lot more. Um, so yeah, basically what I was kind of curious because last year I didn't really make a video like this in terms of just looking at the averages. And right now, to me, what's sticking out is you don't want to play 2 weeks of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and you probably don't want to face me with 2 weeks of um, Saquon and Bowers, and then uh, Tony's team, I probably want to avoid the most, but something tells me he has bad matchups. I don't know. But yeah, hope I didn't bore you guys too much with those numbers. I could get into them more, but I'd rather get into the matchups here because that's what counts. So yeah, going through this one, we're both in the playoffs now. Noah has a bunch of buys. I kind of just talked about the averages with these teams. Um, Now with Trevor Lawrence out, that really lowers the upside of Ingram, who already wasn't really scoring touchdowns, and now Brian Thomas, where I mean you need like a 50-yard catch really for him. So this team's kind of suffered, and now DeAndre Swift, if I remember his schedule is getting harder. Yeah, yeah. So he was popping off around here when he was facing like Carolina, Jacksonville, Washington. New England's a cupcake one. And now this is like these are 2 of the top 5 toughest run defenses. He faces them again. San Fran's no joke. Seattle's really improved their run game. So this is a terrible schedule for Swift. Um, yeah, I think a month ago I had last video I had Noah and Jacob as the toughest teams. And now I'm probably putting them at the bottom, and I'll talk more about Jacob's team later. Rashad White's completely lost his starting job. Um, Now he's just touchdown dependent. If he doesn't score a touchdown, like 11.7 from your flex in a 2-week playoff is not going to cut. So, and then Zay Flowers, more boom bust than we expected. Maybe not. I don't know. Um, Yeah, I guess he hasn't really been consistent the entire year. Still a weapon, but yeah, with my team, all I can really say is I love everybody on there except the quarterback for Neighbors and Waddle. Everybody else, the schedules are fine. I mean, this is the first time I haven't traded in a season, and that kind of tells you how confident I am in my team. But I am also superstitious. I don't think a number one seed has ever um, won the league, and I think I'm up by in points for by like 90. So something tells me I'm going to get screwed, but I mean, I don't know what else I can do with the pieces I've put together, and I'm so glad I hit on Brock Bowers because that's and the Myers pickup, and yeah, because Nick Chubb really it's been unfortunate, and Ramondre is just you can't trust him. So yeah, nothing nothing really to talk about with this matchup here. Just wanted to go over these two teams, and I will not be talking about them for the rest of the night. Let's go through the next team here. All right. Josh versus Max here. Both teams with some significant buys here. Now CJ Stroud isn't that big of a buy for Josh, to be honest. He hasn't been averaging. He hasn't had a great season, sophomore slump. But no Mixon is going to help out Max. But Max doesn't have Taylor, and he doesn't have Daniels. So Eckler now on IR, and um, we'll see with this Bucky injury. Should be fine. I'm probably putting this as a close game. This is going to be a close game. It's going to depend on the Mike Evans and Bucky Irving injuries. Because yeah, he has Noah Brown on a bye. He's got Mixon on a bye. Devontae Smith now practiced in full. He's facing Carolina. Goddard is a candidate for IR. The stats of the history of Devontae Smith without Dallas Goddard is pretty good. And if Cedric Tillman comes back, he was balling. It's a concussion. He should be back. Um, Christian Watson has a great matchup Thursday. If CeeDee Lamb plays, he's got a great matchup for Pollard and Kamara. This is going to be a tough one for Max. This is definitely not going to be a cakewalk. Uh, Hopefully Ridley against his former team will cook. Evans against the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders matchup is insane. If they were fully healthy, Evans and Bucky, I'd definitely pick um, Max. But this is definitely one of the ones where they both have bad buys, and it's going to be tough. Like this one, I would probably put as um, if Josh wins, I would not be shocked. And actually, I did want to make one point on Noah because the Eckler thing kind of reminded me something. I don't need to click back on his team, but he has Brian Robinson, and with Eckler now out for the rest of the regular season, I'm pretty sure that's gonna have to be a saving grace where he can't be starting Rashad White because I think this week he has some buys where he needs to start Rashad White, but if Brian Robinson, who I think is averaging I think it was like 14 points something. If he can turn into like a 18, 19 point per game guy, just have some monster multiple touchdown weeks, I feel like that's the only way Noah's gonna win it all because with Sam Darnold, Jefferson, 16.9, I mean, think about that. That is like 7 points per game less than Saquon, 6 points per game less than Chase. Yeah. No, it's been rough here for Jefferson in terms of a major upside, but maybe I'm just hating. No, I'm not. I am a hater overall for NFC North teams that aren't the Packers. All right, next game, Hunter versus Stewart. Now this one here, last week I was sweating for my boy Hunter, and I mean Stewart, you're my boy too, but I mean, come on, you're out of it, and now you're doubly out of it of making some um waves in the playoff hunt because McCaffrey's on IR and Hunter got Isaac Guerendo. Now, Guerendo is more freak athlete than like a stud running back, but against Chicago and their injuries, I want to say their D line is still pretty banged up. He could have a big game. We'll see with Ladd. He practiced today. That's good news. And Ferguson has a cupcake matchup. That was also a good pickup by Hunter. And yeah, I mean he had a bye week, not a bye, but he already missed a week for a concussion. It'd be pretty unlucky for Hunter to miss to have Ferguson miss again. But it's gonna be interesting with no Derrick Henry specifically. We'll see how he goes. But honestly, um, this has Hunter winning it for sure. I mean, Stowara at this point, he's just throwing in Tajay Spears and Kenneth Walker is questionable now. I'm sure he'll play, but He's got to go hit the waivers for tight end. So there's not much and he's got Bigsby in. So to me, this has a Hunter win on it. And man, I gotta say I'm cheering for Hunter. I'm definitely cheering for Hunter here. This is I don't think he's ever made the playoffs. Um I think at the beginning of the year, I said, listen, it's Montgomery and if Montgomery and Henry just get him all the touchdowns and Amon Ra is Amon Ra, I don't care what's going on with the rest of the team. And that's exactly what happened. Mahomes is a bust, Mark Andrews is a bust, and yet here he is. Almost if he wins, he needs a little bit of help here, but I want to say he's like I want to say he's like 50 point. He has 50 points more than both Max and Jacob above him. So a win and a loss from one of those two, he's in. So it's really not the biggest long shot of all. And in the playoffs, listen, over a 2 week span, he's gonna need like a 40 ball from Henry. I'm saying it's gonna he's gonna need like a maybe a 35 ball or something from Henry, and then a two touchdown game from Montgomery, something crazy like that. He's gonna need DJ Moore to put like 2 good weeks together, and then he needs Lat to stay healthy. I think that's the only reason why. Lat's really the only reason why I'm back. Kind of like there is some hope for Hunter because at the beginning of the year, Lad was just like whatever. Like yeah, no, he had some good games, but they were touchdown dependent. And then now he's finally getting the target share and he's cooking. Um, he's gonna need that. And he's gonna need maybe Garendo at the flex next week. Like if he makes the playoffs and he can put him at the flex instead of this double tight end stuff. Um, oh, he'll definitely have a chance. So there's that. And then the last matchup here we have is probably, in my opinion, the most interesting one, and that is the Alejandro versus Jacob matchup. Now, Jacob he has less points than Hunter, he has less points than Max, and I think he's up by point 0.3 to Tony. And did I look over that matchup with Tony? I might not have done that. Um, so his big miss is Nico Collins. That's what it is. And I think I wanted to say excuse me, Alejandro was missing somebody too. Michael Pittman, but that's not really a big miss here. Uh, if DK plays, I'm actually maybe leaning towards more Alejandro here, but it's tough. It is tough because from players' standpoint, I like Jacob's team more, but from the matchups, I like Alejandro. Alejandro has AJ Brown against Carolina, Chase Brown at Dallas, Pacheco, cupcake run defense right now. They used to be good, the Chargers. And then these two pickups he got, Nick Westbrook at Keeney versus Jacksonville and Trey Tucker against Tampa Bay. They could both just go off. Trey McBride had like a 25-point game against Seattle 2 weeks ago. So it's really if I was Jacob, I'd definitely be sweating a little because Debo versus Chicago, with what Debo's done, not good. Um, his double tight end thing, I mean, they have good matchups, but they've been having good matchups and they haven't been doing well. He's going to need Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney, I was ready. I was talking with Jacob. I was ready to crown Darnell Mooney as the pick of the year at pick 124. And before by week 10, it was looking the part. And then these last 2 weeks, I think he did leave with a hamstring injury. So he should come back and have a good game. And but I gotta say, if Jacob loses, like I don't he might say he's unlucky to me. Like this is a very suspect like Akeda and Will Dissly double tight end matchup to get into to excuse me the week before the playoffs with only one bye on your team is not a good look. And um I feel like Burrow and Chase Stack is gonna have to save him here. But obviously Alejandro has boom bust. Like his team could just put up like 100 with some of these flexes that he picked up. So this is the one. This is the matchup to watch. Probably this one and Max and Josh's. I think is definitely a big one as well. And then I do want to go off. one more because I feel like I did not look at. Yeah, okay, I did miss one. That was Tony versus David. And for me here, it's going to be all Tony. And the reason why I'm going with Tony is just because his team's been hot and David's just hasn't. Like I like the personnel on David's team, but it just hasn't really worked out. And now with Terry on by, Tony does have Sutton on by, but the matchup for with Jaden Reed at Detroit with no Dobbs and Achane versus the Jets, as well as Tyreek Hill and Hurts against Carolina, Kyron Williams versus Buffalo, that has not been a good run defense. Uh, Tony, I think he has to be thinking that he's going to get the dub here because, yeah, Garrett Wilson might be getting a little bit of Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Worthy hasn't been consistent. Now there's TJ Socken, and Cooper Kupp. Not really, but against Buffalo, not the best matchup. And Chuba at Philly with Jonathan Brooks, my baby boy Brooks, coming in hot, and Breece Hall didn't practice it, and he seems to be. They might shut him down. So yeah, I would say in confidence, like if I'm Tony, I'm expecting a win here. If I am excuse me, Hunter, I'm definitely expecting a win. And if I'm Max, I'm sweating, especially with the points for. And if I'm Jacob, I'm like, I mean, Alejandro, with one win, you should feel confident, but man, uh, the lineup that Jacob has out is not really assuring or reassuring. So I think that really does it for the season. Um, I think overall, I think we needed a season like this and from like a macro perspective and where running backs had become too undervalued. And I think some people kind of lost the plot there. I think the best way I thought about going through every single draft position of every single player of all like the running backs and where they went compared to some wide receiver and tight end busts. But I think the one that epitomizes, this kind of delusion was Joe Mixon going 59th. Like even from like I took running back, so I was avoiding him. But man, that type of slip when you look at some of the players that went, but like if you guys have time and can go back and look at some of the players that were going, which and where and whatever, um, you'll know how egregious that pick sliding was. And it just kind of shows that I don't care if it's PPR. In my opinion, the workhorse running back is the most valuable thing. If you have a running back on a good old line who can catch passes and has other threats, good offense like other threats to distract the opposing defense from your player. And then on top of that, like I said, they're good in the passing game. That's a dynamic player. That's a player where if your team is down, if their team is down, they're still being used. If they're up, they're being used to run out the clock. So these Bijans, these Saquons, these Kyrens, Alvin Kamara's. I'm definitely missing some players here. I'm not saying Derrick Henry does because he doesn't catch passes. He's more on the elite offense side of things. But even Kyron, who's not a freak athlete and not an amazing pass catcher, the fact that there's just so few of those guys, I think the strategy of trying to get those guys and worrying about the risk later, I think it really kind of it stood out this year because when I think of like a player like Justin Jefferson. And there was a bunch of videos saying like, yeah, it's Sam Darnold, but are you really not going to take the like arguably the best skill player position player in the league at pick 8 or whatever? And now you look back and you're like, is he averaging 14 points per game? Of course not, it's Jefferson. But 16.9 points per game is not going to win you a league. It's just not. That's just like a good wide receiver. That's like a player in like your I mean bad comparison because he's been hurt and stuff, but T. Higgins is averaging like 18 points per game for me. And if you ask me, have I noticed it? I'm like, yeah, he's having a good season, but I'm not like, oh my God, T. Higgins league winner. And he's averaging more again, more points than Jefferson. So, yep. That's all from me. Had a lot of fun this season. I'm already thinking about the 10th anniversary ideas. We still have one more year to go before that, but yeah, best of luck to everyone in the playoffs. And I'm gonna miss making these videos. I didn't make that many this year, but or it feels like it's been a while. But yeah, you guys, if I don't see you guys, if you have a happy holidays. I'm gonna go. I hope you guys lose this Thursday, and yeah, peace out.